Hey there, listeners! Welcome to Rhapsody and Reverie, episode 4.
Bienvenue. Welcome.
French.
Yeah,
Very
I was. You,
fancy.
Willkommen. Bienvenue. Welcome. How does it go? From de étranger. Stranger. I don't want to do the whole song. Don't make me do the whole song.
Okay, I won't. Actually,
Susan.
I
Je
blacked
suis
out like
enchantée.
5 minutes ago.
We're riding high. It is episode quattro.
Yeah.
And 4 is not a numerology number, I don't think. So there's nothing significant about the number. But there is something significant about today's episode because we are talking today about
About my babies.
your favorite band, the 1975.
We're talking about the 1975.
Yes, we are. Here we go. Here we go.
Okay, so
Okay.
this is what you need to know about me. I love the 1975 more than myself sometimes. So,
It's a sad fact of life, but it's true.
um, yeah, this is very overwhelming for me. This is the episode that I've been looking forward to the most in our season, probably.
Oh, I bet.
There are a couple of others coming up that are also super, super exciting for me. But this is, like, very big.
Of course, it's your favorite band.
Yes.
And this was, I think, actually a part. Okay, because, yes, this was the second show we saw together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because, you remember, like, this was our first show of sophomore year. I came back, because over the summer, you were like, we're going to see this band, and you have until this date to memorize all of their lyrics. And I was like, okay, I know 2 songs from them, and I know I like them. I saw them with you every year until we graduated.
Just about. I
That's
was
sad
thinking
now.
about that not too long ago, but yeah, I've seen them almost every year since 2013 because I
So,
love them. And
yes, and that brings me to my first question for you.
oh, you
How
have a
did
question?
you just? How I do, because I feel like I love this band a lot, but I feel like I want to get into the nitty gritty of why they're your favorite band, because I feel like that's important.
Okay. All right. Well, there
How
there
did
is
how
a
did you
story.
how did you discover them?
Okay. Um so the story of how I discovered the 1975 is actually kind of one of my favorite discovery stories for a band. Cuz I actually discovered them through another band that I liked.
Was
Um
it One Direction?
what? No.
No, because you remember that weird period of time where, like, Harry
Right.
Styles said something like, "Oh, the 1975 are a great band," and then suddenly the concert was full of Directioners, and we were like, "Well, where did these children come from?"
No, that happened a couple of years after, or a year or so after I had already been a fan forever.
Yeah.
Um, no, actually, I discovered them in like at the end of my senior year of high school. It was like late 2012 or something, early 2012 maybe, something like that. But I I am in love with this band Therefore Tomorrow. They have since split up, and I follow like all of them on Twitter. Like each of the band members I follow on Twitter. And the drummer he had some Spotify playlists that he had like tweeted out once. I think it was Sex that was on his playlist, and that was the first song that I heard of the 1975. But yeah, so that's how I discovered the 1975. I heard Sex, and it blew me away. I was like, oh my god, this song is so cool. And then I heard Chocolate, because that was also on that playlist. And I
Mm-hmm.
liked it. And at this point, I liked the songs, but I wasn't obsessed. I was not at obsessive levels yet. We were approaching them, but I was not there. So I listened to Chocolate, and it's a good song. It's upbeat, and it makes you want to dance. But it wasn't until I saw the music video for that song,
Oh yeah.
um, that was the moment when I changed from being just a casual fan to like, this is the greatest band making music on the planet. Like, that was the moment. And I'll tell you why. Because when I listened to Chocolate, like, the first few times, like, I liked it. It's a good song. It's a really good song. And it's fun. But in my head, I was picturing, for like a music video, I was picturing like your typical sort of indie alternative band vibe music video of like smoke bombs and flower crowns and people
Oh boy.
running through like Coachella and things like that. Like, just sort of light-hearted, like, positive, happy vibes. But
Mm-hmm.
then watch the music video. When I sat down and watched it, and it's this black and white, this dark, sort of somber tone. You've got Maddie, and the band in the car just driving and smoking, and then you have Maddie Healy and I believe it was his girlfriend at the time, um, who was in the video, and they're like naked and they're holding each other close, and it's these really intimate sort of angles, and it's all just like shot shot completely in black and white, and it was such a stark contrast to the way I had initially interpreted the song, that
Interesting.
it it just like it it blew my mind, honestly, because it made me realize that this wasn't just like a group of guys making random pop songs. Like, it was it was a band with a singular vision and a unique vision.
I find that there's a lot of beauty and ambiguity in their music, and I'm not sure if that was intentional or if this is Maddie Healy just adding to the ambiance of their band or not. Because I really enjoy how artsy, if that
Yeah.
sounds like I'm pandering, but it's I'm not sure how it's to describe them. They are a very artistic, um, very out there kind of band.
Yeah, there are.
Not so much in sound, but in attitude and in general feel. There's something about them that feels very disconnected and otherworldly, at least to me.
Yeah, and that's very much intentional. As it is, that's kind of at the root of what makes the 1975 who they are. Like, when you listen to some earlier interviews with Maddie Healy, a lot of times they get asked about, oh, why did you guys go for a black and white aesthetic initially? Which they have since moved away from, but Maddie's answer to that question was always sort of um, the idea that he and the rest of the band find comfort in the detachment from reality that black and white can give you. Um, and I think that ambiguity and this idea of detaching from reality is something that is at the heart of everything they do. And it's what drives them in their music and their creations, is this idea that they can separate from the rest of the world in order to be completely 100% introspective when they create music and when they create their visuals, when they create their content. So, one of the many things that I've done in my life as I've been obsessed with the 1975 is write obsessive blog posts about them. But I stumbled across one of the first blogs I wrote about them, and the way I described their music is something I still agree with, is that, like, when Matty Healy writes his lyrics, they sound like a stream of consciousness. Like, it all just sounds, it sounds like you're inside someone's head when you really listen to a 1975 song.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've always loved about his music and his writing style in the 1975. That means so much to me. Like, I love music so much, and it's so much a part of me and who I am, that hearing music that feels so deeply personal is something that I crave and I seek out and I love, because it's a mutual understanding between me and an artist that this is a personal moment and this is serious and this is between you and me. It makes me feel understood in a way that I'm not understood in a lot of other ways. Like, the best way to get to know me is to get to know my music. And I've said this.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is confirmed.
Yeah, like,
you don't know her until you listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
And complete.
It's true. I've had conversations about this with my own mother. The only way you're going to understand me is if you actually, like, listen to the songs that I tell you about. When I tell you to listen to a song, it's not something I do arbitrarily. Like, if I'm telling you, hey, you should listen to this, it's because I'm trying to tell you something. I'm trying to let you in on my life and who I am. And I'm trying to speak to you.
And I find it very fascinating that, because that is the case, your favorite band being the 1975, all of their music is so surrealist in terms of lyrics, sometimes in terms of sound. I like the fact that they play a lot with, not ambient sounds, but they play a lot with just resonance, with just notes going on for almost too long, but not. And it's a very interesting thing. Like you said, like, you're inside, at least Matty Healy's head, like, you're inside wandering around this headspace that sometimes makes sense and sometimes doesn't. So maybe there's a certain beauty in the ambiguity that they're highlighting here. That there's something in the abstract worth looking for.
When you listen to a song like The Ballad of Me and My Brain, which is off their second album.
Incredible song.
That song, that's probably one of the most me songs that they've done.
Okay.
Because it's just this, when you listen to that song, there's this sort of haunting and frantic energy to it. Whenever I hear it, I can picture myself in his shoes when I listen to that song. And
wow.
It feels so true to the way that I live my life at times, which is scary in some ways, because that song's not...
I was gonna say that song...
That song's not a positive song.
Does not end on a positive note. Like, it's weird because it feels very frantic. I agree with you. It's almost like he's trying to be positive, like he's trying to be like, okay, stay calm. He's literally in the song, if you haven't heard it, looking for his brain. He's looking for who he is. He's looking for this piece of him that is missing. Where would I be if I was my brain? Which is such a haunting thought, if you really stop and think about it. Because aren't we our brains? Scientifically speaking? Yeah. Like, that is such a crazy thought to think about.
Well, the last lines of that song are, the nurse once told me she felt my pain, but she couldn't find a single trace of my brain. Oops, I did it again, started playing, forget my brain, remember my name. Those last lines, forget my brain, remember my name, that to me is so striking. But it sums up so much of, like, where the 1975 is, and I can identify with it. It's this idea of just feeling like what's inside your head, none of that matters in the grand scheme of society. Ultimately, at the end of the day, your name, your brand, that's what sticks in people's heads. That's the thing they all want. That's the thing they're all looking for. That's the thing they're all after. Like,
that's so scary, though.
Like,
to me, that's scary. To me, that's terrifying. I love this song and I love this album, but the general message of that
it is terrifying.
is terrifying.
And
to be separated from yourself in favor of the surface level that people know.
Yeah. It's terrifying, and I think that's exactly what they're going for. You look at the 1975's career, and that's kind of where they are, is where they've gotten to a point where, like, they are their name. And I think a lot of the songs on the second album is them sort of coming to terms with that and working through it and dealing with that. At least the way I interpreted their second album. It's a scary thought, but it's a thought that you sort of have to think through. And so I think that's why the Ballad of Me and My Brain stuck out to me on that album as, like, being such a powerful and important song. It's weird to say I relate to it, because obviously, like, I'm not a super famous band or anything, but the idea that the surface, what people see on the surface, is all you are, is something that is a scary truth of the world in a lot of ways. So when I heard the Ballad of Me and My Brain, it was this crazy moment of just finally having something that spoke to this idea that's been kicking around my head for the longest time.
Wow.
Especially because of going through college and growing up, you start to notice just how much the perception of you matters. Like, I don't think it's something that you're necessarily confronted with a lot when you're younger. This idea of, like, how you're perceived in society and the world and stuff. I don't think that's something that necessarily really, really affects you until you get older into growing into yourself more.
Because then you hit a point where you want people to perceive who you are, and then you realize how difficult that is.
Yeah, it's you start to realize the difficulty of being perceived as your true and authentic self as you get older. And so I think the Ballad of Me and My Brain, like, for the 1975, it's this larger question of them and their band. But I think it's also speaking to just a general, like, this general sense of just, like, how do you reconcile, like, between your perceived self and your authentic self? Is there a difference? Should there be a difference? Like, it's all these different questions, and the way Maddie sort of sets it up was this, like, quest for his brain, like, is such a interesting way to sort of think about that. Of just, like, where is my head these days? Like, who am I? Like,
where is my head? Oh, I'm such a fool. I'm so silly.
So silly.
I'm sorry.
So silly.
But I agree with you. I think we had this discussion before the start of the episode, and I jokingly said, "Oh, we're gonna talk about nihilism for an hour," and I want to change my statement because I don't think necessarily that the 1975 sound is nihilistic. I don't think so. I think on a surface level, on the outside, if you don't delve too deep, then yeah, it's sort of like the music for a nihilistic generation where it's like we're all stumbling through trying to sort ourselves out from whatever new depression rock has hit us in the face. Or that, like, we're trying to sift through this stream of consciousness that we're all trying to sort out and make our lives something. Face it, like, a lot of millennials I know, at least, are extremely nihilistic. But I don't think that they really are.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to combat it in their own strange way. I think their sound is sort of a cover for I'm looking for myself. I'm trying to sort out the split between nothingness and wanting something.
Yeah, I think they sort of. I don't think the 1975 is a band that you could really necessarily label as being nihilistic or not. I think they exist in this sort of gray area, and not even just for nihilism, but just in a lot of other just, like, ideological questions. I think they seek to seat themselves in this sort of gray area. So much of them is this exploration of these different ideas, like this question of nihilism and commercialism and authenticity and all these different things. Like, you listen to a song like If I Believe You, which is a beautiful song about this sort of just confronting. It's a song basically confronting God from Matty Healy's perspective as someone who identifies more as an atheist, which is something that you don't really hear in a song by a pop band.
No,
It's not really a topic you ever hear discussed in music, in popular music.
And it was arranged beautifully in the style of a gospel song.
Yeah.
Too. And to me that song was, he's crying out for an answer, like, if you are real, tell me. If you're real, take all this pain and the BS in my life and make it go away, like, please.
Yeah.
Like, it's a cry for help, and he's not sure if he's gonna get an answer. He says, like, there's a line where he goes, you probably shouldn't have made me atheist, which is an interesting concept.
Yeah.
I think
the concept of like a god that if you believe in a god, then you must believe that he created atheism.
Or he left the window of opportunity open.
It's an interesting concept, and I think what's cool about that song is that it's just so open, and it takes on a different meaning for everybody that listens to it, I think. Like, depending on how you feel about that question within yourself. And it's not, and in some ways, like, it doesn't even necessarily have to be about God either.
That's true.
It's just this beautiful sort of orchestrated exploration into this idea of, if I believe in something, is that going to help me change my life or not? Like, if I believe in something, what does that do for me? This question of faith in anything, I think, is a question that, like, is so important to confront as a person, but also so difficult to confront. I haven't been to church in a very long time, and personally I identify more as agnostic than anything, but when I listen to that song, it sort of, like, reminds me and brings me back to a time of being, like, a kid and sitting in church and just being really confused. And it's interesting to have a song like that sort of make you check yourself and make you really think about the way you identify with these larger concepts. Like, it's something that, like, I think you can be blissfully ignorant of. You can push it aside and not think about it, but then, like, at the end of the day, when, like, the chips are down and you feel so desperate, what do you believe in? I think that's where Matty Healy's coming from on this song.
Yeah. That's a really good way to describe it. There is definitely in that song a tone of beautiful desperation, if we're gonna say that. Alright, so this is coming from a perspective of somebody who does believe in God. I'm not gonna get into my beliefs or whatever, but I've been in places where I have felt something so deeply, or I've hurt so strongly, or I've been lost, and I have had moments where I'm like, please, if you're listening to me, if you could take some of this, of what I'm feeling, and put it somewhere else. I have never felt the whole, like, I'm an atheist grappling with this concept of, I don't know, maybe if I believe in you, my life will change. I've never had that, but I've had the, will you please take this off? Because I'm drowning here. So are you going, like, there's like an, are you going to help me please kind of a feeling to this song that I could get in touch with. And I could respect his struggle. Like, I could definitely see his point of view, and I'm like, yeah, this is a real question. I feel like a lot of people, everyday, agnostic, atheist, whatever, they go through this. Or I feel like there's this cry where, like, something's wrong with me, and since I'm told from day one to go to the church, to go to God, would doing this help me?
So much of this album comes from a place of, at least for me, it comes from a place of just, like, help me. But
I don't know why that made me laugh. That was not funny.
But, like,
please.
There's this idea of circling a lot of these songs of just needing someone or needing something, and I think a lot of those songs sort of speak to that. You have songs like If I Believe You, sort of needing this higher power.
You have She Lays Down, where, like, I feel like he feels like he needs his mom, but she can't.
Yeah.
She can't be there.
And, like, you have songs like Nana, which was written for his late grandmother.
Or his grandma.
Yeah. You have songs like Somebody Else.
Yes.
Which is just this. Somebody Else is such a great song. Cannot stress that enough. It's such a relatable song. Just this idea of I don't really want you, but I don't necessarily want to see you with someone else.
Which I think a lot of people go through that in a breakup, where it's like I don't like you, but I also don't want to see you happy either.
Like, it's a very natural response, I think. I mean, it doesn't necessarily last forever, but like, I think there is a moment in your sort of recovery process, so to speak, from a breakup where you're just like, I don't want you anymore, but I also don't want you to move on, kind of thing. I think it comes out of a sort of lingering need for that person, but not even necessarily for that. Maybe more of a lingering need for intimacy and attention. The desire to just be on someone's mind. Somebody else's. It is something else.
Okay. So what are your favorite songs then? Let's start with the first album. We have many feelings about the second album, but the first album, I think, was that perfect blend of surrealism and an introduction. And while I think there's pain and commentary and whatnot on that album, the tone, I think, is very different from the second album. The first album was the self-titled album. I'm gonna let you include songs from the deluxe edition, because I really like the deluxe edition.
Here's
the thing. More songs.
Just to clarify, the deluxe edition has all the songs that the 1975 released on their 4 EPs that they released in the UK, but didn't release here. They had the EPs up on SoundCloud, so I was able to listen to the EPs on SoundCloud, and so I listened to those EPs. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. This is so great. I'm so excited for this album that's coming out. It's going to be awesome. And then they finally released the album. And I remember I was in my living room back in California. It was like maybe midnight or 1 a.m. I had my headphones in. And I was literally losing my mind and senses. Like, I was so... When I heard the song Shoe Way Out for the first time, I started tearing up. Like, I was just wow. This album is perfect. Like, perfect. All capital letters, full stop, period. It's perfect. It was everything I've ever wanted in an album. It's so true to who I am as a person.
Yeah. I like that when I first heard the music, I was in a live show. And from then on, that album to me is very much an otherworldly sound. And I like the fact that when I heard it, I felt disconnected from the rest of the world, and I was in that space. I was in that time.
The reason why I think I connected to it as much as I did when I first heard it is because when I was young, the music that I really kick-started me on my music obsessive journey was, as embarrassing as this is, was disco music.
That's not embarrassing. That's the opposite of embarrassing. That is a good childhood.
My dad has a very large music collection, and growing up, we had this wall of CDs, basically, in our house. It was like wall CDs and records, and then my dad had this 6 CD player and an amp set up all in this like area of our house, and I spent hours there.
Nice.
And my CD of choice was this like 70s disco compilation album that like Andy Gibb and stuff like that.
So the Gibb brothers, we should talk about them.
Thoughts. But anyway, the point is, a lot of where my musical taste started to develop was like 70s music and then bleeding into 80s funk music. That's where my roots were. And so when you listen to the 1975's first album, you really can hear the influence of 80s music and R&B music of the 80s within their discography. And it's something that Maddie acknowledges and has spoken about in interviews. There's this really great log cabin session that he did, that the band did years ago for MySpace when MySpace was still a thing. In it, he talks about how Black American music was such a huge influence on him as an artist and the band and their sound. And you really hear it in both of their records, but the first record especially, you hear it on tracks like She Way Out, and Hard Out and Settle Down. Like so much of the grooves on the 1975 are reminiscent of those sounds from the 80s and late 70s.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. I no, because like it's weird because until you mentioned that, I had never associated them as having that connection.
Really?
Really, which is weird because like I always thought the song "Girls" had that great '80s pop sound.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the song "Girls" for like not just for that reason, but that's one of them because it does sound like it could have very well come out from like a Tears for Fears album.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it could have.
Yeah.
Which I think goes back to the whole beautiful nihilism of the 1980s pop genre. I think you're right, is really well reflected in this first album. I'm not going to go so far as to say the second album, in my personal opinion, but this first album, that went completely over my head. So thank you. But then again, like I haven't read up on them as much as I have other bands because I've been content to let it remain a mystery, if that makes any sense. The sound is just so intriguing overall on that album. And like I said, it's forever gonna be an out of body experience for me to listen to that first album. Like to me it captures for me the sense of what it feels like to be in a smoke filled room with music bombarding you from every direction and you feel everything and nothing all at once. And that's a very strange thing, I think, to associate with an album. And yet here we are.
I mean, I think that's a beautiful image. The idea of just being in a smoke-filled room. And
which is what we were when we saw them. Which may have something to do with it because, like I said, I didn't listen to the album before I saw them. I listened to it after. So maybe the order in which I did that had an effect on how I interpreted their songs. But I don't know. I think they'd be pleased with that image.
I mean, I think there's an element of that within their music. Again, yeah, it just speaks back to the idea of the detachment from reality, and I think that's something that is definitely intentional on their part. The idea of sort of like taking you out of the familiar, taking you out of the known constructs of music and of life and of society. Because like as it is, the 1975 talks a lot about their desire to not be beholden to one genre.
And they definitely aren't. You could paint them with the broad brush of, oh, they're an indie band. But they're not. Because they've transcended that. They don't have an indie sound. And they've transcended the genre of being a small indie band. And they're a pop band. Their songs are on the radio. You don't hear some, like, what is it? It's a song that I hear on the car commercial. Which I don't think it should be on this particular car commercial. Because, like, it makes no sense. But,
the sound.
Yes. The point being that like they're not pop either because I know it's funny. I mean, they're pop but they're not pop.
Something that again Maddie has said in interviews before is just this idea that amongst our generation we don't really consume music the same way that our parents did. And as a result, genre kind of matters less for us in our generation because for our parents and before, people listened to albums. Like,
Yes.
they sat down, they listened to albums by artists, and as a result, those artists sort of made an album that was based on a genre, and that was then singles were released and the albums were sold and people consumed those albums. But our generation, you can release a song on SoundCloud today. You don't have to release an album. And a side effect of that seems to be that artists are able to bend genre lines so much easier. It's so much easier to make a whole new style of music because you don't have to worry about how it's going to fit on the context of an album. You can just be like, I'm gonna just release it on SoundCloud today.
Yeah.
And so I think with the 1975, what they do best is just taking that idea and just applying it to the entire context of their band. So when they go into the studio, they make music based on the true reflection of themselves, not on the reflection of their genre, quote unquote, or their label, or what the picture archetype that they're supposed to fit into. You hear that so clearly on their first and second album, especially their first album. I love their first album so much. If I could have She Way Out just play every time I enter a room, my life would be so much better. Like, I love that song. It's my strut song. The way a lot of people interpret it is like, oh, that song's about a girl that's out of her league, out of somebody's league, but that's not what the song's about. And I love that because it's just like, again, it sort of speaks to this ambiguity that makes the 1975 who they are. Like, you listen to that song and yeah, you can't quite get a good grasp on it, like, on the first listen. You have to really think about it.
I agree. And I think that perfectly sums up all of their music. You need to listen to it over and over and over. Like, to really get a true sense. Even then, like, look, it's been 5 years since their first album came out. 5. And I'm still, like, my views still change occasionally about what songs actually mean, or what they mean to me, or what he's actually trying to say. They're a very fascinating band that way. But you're right. Repetitive listening with them is key.
Yeah, I definitely believe so. Is There Somebody Who Can Watch You? That song, first of all, is beautiful. But the meaning of that song for me changed within the context of my own life. I heard it the first time, and for me, it made me think about going to college and leaving home. And that was the meaning that I sort of took away from it. Leaving someone behind and leaving a life behind, which is definitely within that song. But then when I listen to it now, my life has changed a lot. And since then, I've watched my family dynamic completely change. And Is There Somebody Who Can Watch You is so much more personal to me now. And in some ways now it almost speaks to a kind of yearning. A yearning.
For somebody who can watch you?
Yearning for a childhood. Yearning for an innocence that, like, has changed. And it's so different from how I first heard it. How can a song that already meant a lot, like, mean even more to me? Like, it was just crazy.
Added depth and added layers are something that this band handles very well.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the music's just good.
Yeah, that piano.
That piano, his voice on that song is so good. And then, like, just in general, his entire album's perfect. Hard Out is a great song. Like,
I really like Falling for You.
Falling for You is adorable. And
that song,
sultry.
I'm a hopeless romantic in many respects. I pretend I'm not. I pretend I hate love and all things affection, but really I'm a I'm a softie who just buckles for this kind of stuff. And there's such a tentative feeling in that song. It's like, I want to touch you, I want to kiss you, but I don't know if I should. I don't know if you feel what I feel. I don't know if you're aware. Like, I think my favorite line in that song is like, I don't want to be your friend. I just want to kiss your neck. Like,
that's such a great
same mood. Because it's like, I know you know how I feel. Please, please. But there's such a beautiful. There's this beautiful hesitation that he builds up throughout the whole song, where he's like, I'm trying to tell you how I feel, and I feel like a lot of us have gone through this feeling of being in love with somebody and needing them to know, but being scared to tell them. And this is like this poor person like working through that fear to get up the nerve to tell this person, I'm in love with you, I have feelings for you, and it's one of my favorite songs off the album. Curses that it's only on the deluxe version.
Yeah,
but it's so good.
It's so good. It's such a beautiful, beautiful expression of that feeling of just like, are we gonna like, can we, like, please,
right? And I feel like it's one of those songs that belongs in like a heartfelt TV moment where like these two characters, they've been waiting, the will they won't they tension has been killing you for 3 seasons.
Yes.
And one of them has finally worked up the nerve to tell them how they feel. And it's like, X, what do you mean? You know what I mean, why? I've always been in love with you. Always! And like, that's the music you hear in the background right before they kiss for the first time.
Yep, that's definitely
the
vibe. It's definitely
and I
the
love the vibe of the song. I think the music is beautiful. I'm their use of simple melody with beautiful words conveys a very strong feeling to me of hope. Like, the hope that somebody will love you back. I'm a big old softie. Just really love this song. Girls is one of my favorites. I love Girls.
I love Girls. That song is such a great song. It's such a lit song when they perform it live too, because it's like
a bop.
all the girls are like, yes, that's the jam, and you know, that's totally all right, and it's great because I listened to that song, and like, it's so accurate to who I was as a teenager. like,
your typical stoned 18-year-old.
it's sad, but like, true. It's just girls breaking hearts, uptight, eyes bright, uptight, just girls.
It's fun to look at that song and be like it allows you to laugh at yourself from that time period, but it's also like so clearly this man's frustration with
it's like you laugh, you're like, ha ha ha, but then you're like, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it's like, I'm sorry, we're all mental.
Real talk, I thought when I first heard the song he was singing about ghosts.
Just ghosts.
Yes, I really thought he was. I thought he was singing about ghosts, and I was like, "This is weirdly kinky. I like it." I sort of pictured like Scooby-Doo for a little while when I first heard that song, because it's like, I think you better go because I can't take you. Oh, he's singing about ghosts. It's Scooby-Doo.
Oh my god.
But obviously, like, I thought about it and I was like, wait, this song's called Girls, not Ghosts. And it kind of clicked with me. Oh, he's talking about us.
He's talking about girls. Yep, us girls. Mm-hmm. Eyes bright, uptight, just girls. What I love about that song, too, is that song is a brilliant moment of when the music video that I had in my head is the one they actually ended up making.
I think Sex is forever going to be cemented as a personal favorite, only because it was the first song I ever heard, and it's a very alluring, very charged song.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about it more than that.
At the risk of getting a little PG-13.
Yeah, at the risk of going up in our ratings by 1 digit.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say about that. My other favorite song in this album is Me.
Oh man, that's a painful one.
Yeah, it's another bonus track. I don't know why all my favorite songs are on the bonus track. Like, I love the album completely, but all my favorite ones seem to come from the bonus track, except for Girls and Sex.
Their EPs are bops.
Yeah.
So Me was the last song on their Music for Cars EP, which was the EP that was anchored around the song Chocolate.
That's fascinating, because if you said that all the EPs were centered around different tones,
Yeah.
then that's fascinating.
Yeah. It adds another layer for you there.
It does, because I would not have paired them together.
Mm-hmm.
But they did. So now I have to go back and listen and see what they were trying to say.
Yeah, but Me's a great song. It's so sad.
I don't know why it's my favorite.
It's so sad.
I'm a very melodramatic person who likes. I really like the general feel of. There's a very tangible feeling of despair, as if this person is making a confession, or maybe making a confession with their eyes and their heart, but not with words, to somebody that they care about.
Yeah.
And I like that. Like, they're trying to blow off everything they feel with, like, oh, don't worry about it. Like, don't you mind. But obviously these things are extremely hard and painful for the speaker of the, to talk about. Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to necessarily say I relate to anything in that song, because that's not something you want to, like, say out loud.
Yeah. I'll say it. I relate to that song. Not in a one-to-one, like, this exactly happened to me. But I relate to the, like, sentiment of that song. This idea of, like, the feeling of feeling so guilty for the pain you inflict on others. Feeling guilty for whatever your actions have caused upon someone else. Even, like, regardless of the severity of those actions, because, like, I'm not about to say that I've, like, done something so horrible to someone, but, like, just this idea of just feeling so bad for your agency in someone else's situation. Like, just, it's a deeply, deeply personal feeling. It's a deeply, it's just so moving.
It really is. It really is. To me, I don't necessarily, well, I guess, I don't necessarily want to come out and say, yeah, I completely, that's where I'm coming from with this, because it's not. In a way, I feel like it's more, for me, it's like, it taps into my desire to want to be understood and to want somebody to, like, to talk to, or to want somebody to understand whatever it is, but it's also like, my problems aren't that big a deal. Don't worry about it. I will keep everything bottled up forever, and then one day I'll die. So, it's like that. I don't know. I think that's the beauty of these songs, is that they can mean a lot of different things with a lot of different layers, and make people cry for many different reasons.
Yeah, that song definitely made me cry.
Yeah.
On multiple occasions. It's such a good song, though.
Yeah.
Pressure is a song that I think some people sleep on sometimes, but that song for me is one of those songs that I really, really connect to on more of a one-to-one level. Like,
interesting.
With some of the 1975 songs, like, the way I relate to them is a bit more, like, in the abstract, in the general feeling of the song, but not necessarily, like, specifics. But, like, with Pressure, that song feels a lot more personal to me within the context of my own life. It just, like, I love the chorus. If my heart stops beating, we'll bleed the same way.
Oh.
It's just, so many of the lines in that song are just so smart and so good, and just speak to these feelings of just, like, fear and pressure. Just feeling under the gun, and just feeling a little bit paranoid, a little bit just unsure and unsettled in life. And it's so interesting to me that they pair that with such a, like, smooth and laid back track. You have these deeply personal, vulnerable, scared lyrics, but with this really, like, chill, laid back persona with the instrumentation. And that marriage between those two things is something that really just speaks to, like, me and who I am as a person. Because I think, like, I get a lot of times people, like, look at me from the outside and they're like, oh, you're so chill. And I do have that sort of perception on the outside. And then inside, I'm, like, constantly freaking out all the time.
You're so freaked out that you've ascended to a higher plane of existence of constant panic, so that you always appear
Yeah,
chill.
apparently. So it's just, yeah, it's so interesting to just have that dichotomy within that one song.
Yeah.
I love it. And I mean, that song, like, in itself, I think Maddie wrote it more about being, like, feeling watched and feeling like it's more about, like, dealing with his popularity and his parents' popularity, because his parents are famous in the UK.
Are they actually?
Yeah, his mom was on, like,
That's cool.
famous British show, I think. So that song, he wrote it more about feeling watched at, like, growing up, being in the public eye a little bit as a result of his mother's fame. But, like, for me, it takes on another life and being more about just the way I feel within my own life, about just feeling under scrutiny, under my own personal scrutiny, and my own personal, like, feelings of pressure that I put on myself. And it's, yeah, I love that song so much. Like, that's probably my other favorite, like, Chew Way Out and Pressure.
So yeah, let's move on to I Like It When You Sleep, for You're So Beautiful Yet So Unaware of It.
Beautiful title.
By Fall Out Boy.
It does have Fall Out Boy level length to that title, yes.
I want to take a moment to mention Please Be Naked. I love that song. I know it's an instrumental piece.
So good, though.
But there's something very beautiful about the image that it portrays, at least to me. I guess it could be seen as bittersweet or even negative, but to me it's like almost like a follow-up to Falling for You.
Mm-hmm.
Almost. I don't know if they intended it this way, but it's almost like you've gotten the answer and you haven't seen this person in a while, and you're really just hoping that once you open that door, they'll be naked.
You're trying to smash?
like, yeah, it's like, I'm really hoping that, like, this, you've told the person how you feel, they've gone, and they've told you to come there, and you're really hoping that in that split second before you open that door, they'll be willing to receive you, spiritually and physically. It's like, I don't know, it's the anticipation of it. I don't know. I think it's a sweet, beautiful piece.
And I think that's true. I think it's definitely sort of speaking to that, like, feeling of, like, it's time, just, like, please, it's time. It's just, this is the time.
Yeah, and it's that moment, that sweet moment drawn out for 4 minutes of someone's hand on the doorknob, ready to turn it, hoping that they're gonna be let in.
Like,
and like, there is the sexual aspect of it, but there's also the emotional aspect of it. Like, I don't know, because to me, being intimate with somebody is not just being naked physically. It's being naked with your, emotionally with your spirit. Like, I'm bearing my all for you. Or the song is, this person has bared it all. And they're standing there hoping to be accepted for what they're showing. Like, I hope you still find me desirable once you know about all my kind of a thing. And I think that's a very that's a fear everybody has, I think, when they start a new relationship. Please love me as I am, like, as I am naked.
Definitely.
So that's one of my favorites, which is weird because it's definitely just an instrumental
No,
piece.
I mean there are a lot of really great standouts in their instrumental pieces on this one. I actually really liked the title track on this album, which isn't a instrumental piece really, but it kind of is.
It's mostly, and then it branches into words at the end.
And I really love that song, because I really like the one line that is in that song, where it's just like, before you go, turn the light on. And I think within the context of that song, like, it's just such a beautiful moment. And it's like a beautiful sadness in that song. It's just like, before you go, turn the light on. It's kind of just like it's this feeling of like someone's leaving you, and you're just like, if you're gonna leave, at least like give me something. This feeling of just like, please don't leave me alone completely. That's the feeling that I always get from it, and it's so sad, but it's so beautifully done, because there's like a beautiful vulnerability to it. It's just like it's a again, it like speaks to this sort of like this recognition that like you can't do this alone.
Oh,
it's this recognition that you need others in your life, and you need people in your life, and you in any context, whether it be romantic or platonic or just like whatever capacity, like you just there is a need for somebody that's going to leave a light on for you, someone that's going to be there. Yeah, I think it's beautiful. I think that song, even just the instrumentation of it, is just it's so like beautiful and light. It's like light and airy, but still like powerful.
I agree. I don't know. It goes again to this weird motif that they've got in capturing a sense of beautiful sadness.
Paris is also kind of like that too.
Paris is great. It makes me think of Sabrina.
Yeah.
Like how she's always like, Paris is always a good idea, and she runs away to Paris because in Paris she was happy. And we're not talking about Sabrina the Teenage Witch. We are talking about the film. Well, either film with Audrey Hepburn or Harrison Ford. Either one, they're both excellent. But in both, the main character Sabrina is only happy when she's in Paris. Like she falls in love when she's back home in America. But not to spoil the movie, but things go wrong, and she says this line about Paris, and it's so true. Sometimes to be happy, you just need to run away from your problems. Go to Paris.
Yeah, in that song, it's just like this idea of just like things were better at another time in our lives. It's this sort of disillusionment with the initial happiness or high that you felt within the context of a relationship. And I think it's just it's so beautiful. I've said beautiful so many times in this episode, but like there's so much beauty in the 1975, and the way that they put music together, it's like they approach music like painters. They paint these magnificent portraits and pictures and landscapes with their music, and and when I listen to Paris, I think about just this beautiful expression of longing and desire for another time, a simpler time. Man, I love that song. Oh, I'd love to go to Paris again.
I will say that I really love the song "This Must Be My Dream," and I know Maddie hates it.
I know.
Now, I know he said that, but going back to that stupid hopeless romantic thing that I confessed to, I love how happy this song is and how beautiful it is, and yet how bittersweet it is, right? Like there's a tinge of something else there under the layers of like, this must be my dream. Like I see you in my life, and I have to be dreaming because I was awake before. Like it's a weird play on old romance songs and stories about how when someone beautiful and when somebody you love walks into your life for the first time, what's the first thing you think? Mm-hmm. You've woken me up. Like before I was living a dream, and you woke me up,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. Like, and not even figuratively. What do we see with Sleeping Beauty? What do we see with Snow White? It's somebody literally being awoken by true love into real life. And he sort of turns that on its head, and is saying like, I'm in love with you. I'm in a dream, and before I was awake.
Yeah.
Which is both sad and beautiful. Again, with the sad and the beautiful.
Honestly, what I like about that song, I think it's no accident that This Must Be My Dream comes right before Paris. Because in some ways, it's like, it's sort of like a before and after kind of thing. This must be my dream.
Yeah.
Like, you're right, it's a bittersweet, because on one hand, it's telling this story of finding somebody that's going to change your life. That's she's she's everything I've ever wanted. She's this dream that I've been constantly yearning for. But then realizing that maybe that's not all there is. Maybe there's a darker side. What do you do once you get the dream, kind of thing? Like, it's the aftermath, and realizing that maybe dreams were meant to be dreams. And then it goes into Paris, and it's just this sort of like resignation of just realizing that you wish you could go back to that time where that person was this dream that you had just stepped into, as opposed to just being in the now where you're living real life and having to come to terms with all of the flaws and idiosyncrasies that come with that. It's just, there's so much. There's so many layers to all of these songs.
It's also good. It's a beautiful
10
album.
out of 10. I love this band so much.
I would like to point out, we didn't mention this once, and I'm surprised you didn't. That's the first time we saw them live, we actually met them.
Yes, oh my god. The first time we saw the 1975. So we went to the venue, and we saw the show. The show was amazing. I know I have no way of proving this, but I low-key think that Maddie Healy sung part of She Way Out to me. And
nice.
I'm just going to hold that in my head as my memory, but that's fine. But yeah, after the show ended, I don't even know how we knew to stay late, but we just
we were just trying to buy stuff.
Yeah.
We were just trying to buy stuff.
We were just,
I wanted a t-shirt.
Yeah, we were like trying to figure out what to buy, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh my god, the band is here. Like, and so yeah, I got to meet Maddie and Ross and George and take a picture with them. And the best thing happened is when I walked up to them, like, they were trying to get people through the line pretty quickly, so I didn't have a whole lot of time. But, like, I remember, like, I hugged Ross, because he was the first person, and then I get to Maddie, and the first thing Maddie says to me is, I love your braids. And I, oh my god, I was just like, thanks. Like, I could not, that was like literally the happiest I could have ever been. But
I'm ready for them to rip my heart out all over again.
Yeah, I need them to hurry up and, like, release whatever it is they've got cooking so that they can go on tour, so I can see them live again. And I need that. I need that to happen this summer, in addition to the Panic at the Disco tour, so I can just have the best summer.
We just need a lot to happen. So get on it.
Get it together. Let's do it. I mean, take your time if you need it, but also, I need this album.
But also hurry up. Yeah. It's like Hosier. We should do a Hosier album.
Oh man. Thank you so much for listening. Please, please, please like us on Facebook at Rhapsody and Reverie Podcast.
Follow us on Twitter at Rhapsody Podcast.
Go to our website. Subscribe to us. We are now on iTunes. leave us a rating if you go on iTunes and check us out. Give us 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 star. Write some feedback for us there. If you leave an exceptionally great comment, positive or negative, we'll shout it out on the show. So, give us your best and or your worst.
Peace out. Catch us next week and tune in to discover who our next featured artist is.
Hey, if you have a guess, let us know what your guess is.
Their second album's title comes from the novel Less Than Zero by Bret Easton Ellis.
So, if y'all do some research,
that's
a real hint.
That's a real hint.
If you figure it out, tweet it at us, and we will shout you out.
Yes.
On our episode. So, this has been our 1975 episode. We should say goodbye now.
We should. I feel like we've tried to say goodbye so many times, but we just love you so much.
I love you.
We love you.
So much.
Oh, God.
So much. You mean so much to me, even though I have no idea who you are.
You complete me. Shut up.
No.
Shut up.
Shh.
You had me at hello.
No words. Just dreams.
I wrote you.
Every day.
Every day. Bye, guys. We love you. Bye. Mwah. Call us when you get home safe.
Okay, I love you. Bye.